Right. The podcast that uncovers the origin stories of some of the biggest names in sports, media, and entertainment. Nick Durst here with Joe Calabrese. And Joe, my sources are reporting that we have a really big guest with us here today.
Sources are reporting third time is the charm, a man who needs no introduction, senior NFL insider at ESPN and the host of the Adam Schefter podcast, Adam Schefter. Adam, welcome to the show. Thank you for doing this. How are you today?
Joe, Nick, thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
So you grew up in Valley Stream, Long Island, not too far from where Nick and I grew up in New York City over here. When you grew up, were you a Mets fan? You were in close proximity to Shea Stadium. What was it like growing up on Long Island, and what teams did you root for?
I was not a Mets fan growing up. I was a Yankees fan. And in fact, growing up, I watched every pitch of every game, didn't miss anything, was watching the Pine Tar game live when it happened, watched Bucky Dent's home run live when it happened, watched all of Reggie Jackson's home runs live when they happened. I mean, I could tell you every great Yankee moment in history growing up. Over time, I lost interest in baseball and now really indifferent about it. Just don't care nearly like I did when I was growing up on Long Island. I was a big Islander fan, and that was the heyday of the Islanders when they won 4 straight Stanley Cups. That was tremendous. I was a Jet fan growing up. They never really rewarded me for being a Jets fan the way that the Islanders or Yankees did. I was a big Knicks fan, loved Bernard King, Bill Cartwright, listened to the games on the radio in my bed when my parents told me it was my bedtime, and I'd have the radio under my pillow, listening to Marv Albert with his great calls all the time. So, yeah, New York sports were a part of my childhood. And as you go on in the business, you really don't root for teams anymore, particularly in the sports that you cover. You root for the people that you know, the relationships you have, the people that you like and admire and respect. And that's sort of where it's at right now. You know, yeah, I grew up a Jets fan, but, you know, outside of the people in the organization that I respect and admire, you know, it doesn't matter to me whether they win or lose, although I know my Jet friends will be very happy or upset by how the team performs on any given Sunday.
Yeah, Joe, long-suffering Jets fan, of course. So it seems like you're a big sports fan growing up, and then when you're deciding to pursue a journalism career, attending University of Michigan and then Northwestern, did you go into it saying I wanted to cover NFL, or were you open to any sort of sports writing job you could have gotten?
No, I did not want to go into the NFL. I did not target the NFL. I got my first job out in Colorado in 1990, and I thought, wow, how great is this, getting to move to Colorado? Like, the idea of it was romantic to me as a guy that grew up on Long Island, didn't really know anybody there, had some distant family that was very kind to me, but by and large, really didn't know anybody or anything. I moved out there in September of 1990 at the age of 23 and set out to form a life for myself, both personally and professionally. And I wanted to go cover a baseball team. Having grown up a big Yankees fan, that was what I loved growing up. And I thought it would have been the greatest thing in the world to go be able to cover a baseball team. And in fact, a couple of years later, Colorado was awarded an expansion baseball franchise, and I applied to become the baseball beat writer. And the newspaper, you know, wasn't all that interested at all. In fact, there was one of my neighbors, this story that I love to tell. One of my neighbors wanted to cover the team. I wanted to cover the team. We both interviewed for the job, and the newspaper hired a longtime distinguished baseball beat writer by the name of Tracy Ringlesby, who only wanted to bring along a baseball beat writer that he knew from his time in the industry named Jack Etkin. So Tracy Ringlesby and Jack Etkin got the job covering the Rockies for the Rocky Mountain News, the job that I wanted and the job that my neighbor wanted. And so my neighbor, when he didn't get the job, wound up leaving the Rocky Mountain News, and he went on to go write at the Los Angeles Times, where he won a Pulitzer Prize, and then began to write books like Andre Agassi's life story, like Phil Knight's story, Shoe Dog, like Prince Harry's life story, like The Tender Bar. And J.R. Moringer did okay for himself after not getting the baseball beat writing job for the Rocky Mountain News. When I didn't get the job, was forced to stay on football. And it shows you how dumb and stupid I was. Honestly, I would have left the NFL and the Denver Broncos in a heartbeat to go cover the Colorado Rockies. And that would have been my life if I had my way. But I didn't have my way. The newspaper made its choice. I was essentially relegated to stay on the NFL beat. against my wishes. Didn't want to do that. And lo and behold, here we are.
So that was against your wishes. Funny how things turn out. And then you ultimately start doing some TV stuff, some appearances around the horn, ultimately moved to NFL Network before ESPN. Were you hesitant about TV as well, or was that something you definitely wanted to pursue?
It was something that was not in my plans, not my cards. Honestly, it was a little bit intimidating. And back in the day, the early 1990s, at least it was in the environment I was, like, people in the newspaper business, I think, looked down on people in the television business. Hold on one second. Just want to make sure that this is not some kind of big trade or something.
It'll be big, Joe.
This is amazing.
Could have done something. This is awesome.
This is so good. I don't even think we need to cut this out. I think this is great.
No, it's huge. He's gonna turn around and go on ESPN right now.
Yeah. Not breaking news. Anyway, so where were we?
Talking about TV in the 90s.
Oh, yeah. So people in the newspaper business looked down on people in the TV bit. Like, it just wasn't something that people in the newspaper business, it wasn't what people aspired to do. And the truth of the matter was, again, by being in Colorado, by not having many friends, by not having family out there, I just was looking for things to do. So on the weekends, somehow, some way, the NBC affiliate there, Channel 4, which is now KCNC, which I think is a CBS affiliate today. They've changed around. But anyway, they would have me in on Saturday nights on a show called Broncos Beat, where they would preview the Broncos' upcoming game, and they would bring in the Rocky Mountain News beat writer, Adam Schefter, to break down the matchup. And I just thought, wow, like, this is great. Like, you get to go on TV. How cool is that? I'm a single guy. Like, I figured I could use it as a pickup line for women. Like, you're doing TV. Like, that's kind of cool. That's what I thought back then, And so I was doing, one segment a week over the course of 5, 6, 7 years. I was doing it for the $100 gift certificate that they would give me to the men's shop in town, as a aphrodisiac for women, and basically training myself, unbeknownst to me, in the event that television should happen to ever call, which it did in 2004, some 14 years later.
Wow, what a journey there. So it seems like, all these things just fall into place for you, and it's all worked out so far.
Yeah, accidentally. I mean, it
Good
wasn't
vibrations.
It was not anything planned, I can tell you that. Like, it just sort of happened.
Yeah. Right place, right time. And it's worked out. So for you now, what's your favorite place to go and cover a game at? How much does food impact that for you? I mean, obviously, you also got to do some basketball, a little bit of the sideline reporting. That must have been fun for you, being a big basketball fan. So arena-wise or football stadium-wise, your favorite places to cover a game?
I don't go out to too many games anymore. I've been a part of the Monday Night Countdown crew sometimes. And so, honestly, at this stage of my life, the places that I prefer to cover games are close to home.
Mm-hmm.
Places that are easy to get to and back from. Like, okay, put me in MetLife every time, because I could be home, after the game ends. If I'm in Green Bay, that means connecting flights. That's not fun. As great as Lambeau Field is, as historic as it is, as much tradition as there is, as fun as it is to be there, that's not an ideal place to have to travel to because of the logistics involved. I like simplicity. So if you want to send me to Philadelphia and I can get on a train ride coming home, great. If you want to send me to Boston, I can drive home, great. You want to send me to New York, great. You want to send me to Green Bay, not as great.
That's you got to do the Lambeau leap again too, so it's a lot of pressure.
There's always a lot of pressure when you have to do that. Yes. So again, it's just a question of convenience. That's how you kind of measure things these days.
Adam, you mentioned MetLife. I wanted to quickly bring up, throughout the years, we've seen players kind of complain about the turf there. Has this ever been a point of emphasis for the NFL? Because it's something that seems to have been recurring here a couple of times.
Yeah, I mean, look, that's the NFLPA's job, is to make sure that it's up to standards. And, we've heard players complain about it. We've seen players get hurt on it. It seems like something seems to be not exactly ideal. But it is what it is. It's up to the PA, not me, to defend the players and complain about it and create a ruckus if they think that something's wrong. The Jets and Giants defend the place. They insist there's nothing that's wrong or out of the ordinary. And so as long as that's the case, then nothing's going to change.
Yeah. Only thing that would have been great there was a dome. If it was a dome, they would have got a lot more out of it. But that's neither here or there.
Well, that's also true. But I also look at that place compared to some other places, and just there's a lot of character to a lot of stadiums, and in my opinion, that stadium just doesn't have a lot of character.
Yeah, it's like looks like a big like aluminum can, and it's just like
in a swamp.
Like a sterile environment to me.
Yeah, your opinion is very much shared here. There's Nick and I from New York. So now where do you watch NFL games on Sundays? Are you with your family? Are you with coworkers? How does that work? Are you like us where you're just kind of consuming Red Zone and watching everything at once?
Just depends on whether or not I have to be at the Monday night game. If I don't, like this past year, we were doing Monday Night Countdown in Bristol, or I would be doing it from my home where I am right now. So I would sometimes stay in Bristol, often watch all the games there before either spending the night in Bristol, Connecticut, or traveling back home and doing Monday Night. Again, it's all contingent on how they want to use me on Monday night. It changes year to year. There was a stretch of time where we were doing the shows out of New York, made things pretty easy. This year was out of Bristol. No idea what next year will be. No idea whether I'll be included on Monday nights. Like, it's all up to them. I work for them. They tell me what to do, and we adjust from there.
So, Adam, in your life or your career, what would you say is your I'm right moment? What I mean by that is a time or place where you wanted to pursue something, you asked somebody for advice, they said, Adam, that's a bad idea, it's not going to work out, and you said, you know what, I'm going to do it anyway. And in the end, you'll see why it is that I'm right about this.
What did you call that moment, Nick? What was the question?
I'm right moment.
Oh, the I'm right moment.
I told you so,
Well, I gotcha.
Well, but I don't know if this qualifies, but I remember when I was debating whether to leave the Denver Post in 2004 for NFL Network. Now, this is 20 some years ago. And there were people who were saying, why would you leave the established newspaper world for a league-owned network? Like, what are you doing? That is not a wise career choice. There were people whose opinion I counted on, respected, appreciated, valued. And in the course of my discussions with numerous people that I leaned on, I remember one particular individual who I love very much telling me, why would you go to work at NFL Network? Like, that's a horrible career move. Now, that person thought he was right. And ultimately, I went against his wishes, and I made the move to go to NFL Network and to leave the newspaper business, which was something that I had put basically at that point in time, including colleges, almost 20 years of work into. And I felt very passionate and strongly about newspapers. I loved writing, but I made the decision at that time, which was not an easy decision to make, to go to NFL Network. And again, there were many people that told me I was making a mistake, that told me not to do it, that told me to stay in newspapers. And I didn't listen. And you know what I could say all these years later? I'm right.
Love it.
Absolutely love that. Adam, we know that boxers' hands are registered as weapons, right? Is it true that yours are too, because you're always carrying two phones, one for personal, one for work? Is it illegal for you to drive?
My wife doesn't like for me to drive. She gets very upset when I'm driving because inevitably there are texts coming in, calls, and she wants me rightfully focusing on driving and on the road and on the task at hand. And so it's not a very popular decision when I'm driving my family. They don't like for me to do that. They don't like driving either. So it's kind of like something's got to give here. So you can't have it every which way, but we do the best we can to manage the situation as best as we can.
Interesting. So Adam, what we do here is usually we do like last words and we get our guests to share and promote stuff. Obviously, you don't need to share and promote too much because you're everywhere. So I wanted to bring up something specific. Last month, you lost your close friend, Chris Mortensen. Mort was super important to what the NFL and ESPN meant. He's somebody that Nick and I grew up watching. He's somebody who was a mentor for you and a friend, right? So just talk about your relationship with Mort, how important he was to you. Yeah. And if you have any good stories with him, we would love to share.
Yeah.
We would love to hear that. Take us home.
Yeah, well, that was an emotional time, still is an emotional time. Love Mort, meant an awful lot to me. You know, put my Twitter avatar, my ex avatar, is a picture of me and him filming a commercial for ESPN together. That avatar will always stay up. There's a picture I put up in my office right here on the wall, and I love how during many of my Sports Center NFL Live hits, whatever it may be, Get Up, whatever show I'm on, often you could see that picture over my right shoulder, and Mort's face is on, and I like to keep him on ESPN, which is how one of many ways I'll think of him for all the great work that he did. He was a pioneer in our industry. He was a mentor to me. He was instrumental in bringing me to ESPN. He could have blocked it. He didn't. He welcomed it. He supported it. He embraced it. I would not be in the spot I am today were it not for him. And again, when I think back to my time at ESPN, you know, this draft, I've been doing the draft every year since 2009. I got to ESPN in August of 2009, so 2010 every draft. And every draft I've ever done, Mort has been truly, physically, literally right by my side.
Mm-hmm.
This will be the first draft that Mort is not there. So that will be different, and he'll be on my mind the whole time, just as he had been by my side for every Sunday NFL countdown up until this past season when he stepped aside. And it was not the same without him. It was certainly different. He was somebody that could make me laugh at a time when I was all intense about a story, you know, waiting for something to get confirmed, trying to make one more call, trying to figure out how to phrase something, whatever it may be. You know, Mort would be like, get over yourself. Stop taking it so, you know, we'd laugh. And, you know, he was the most credible and funniest guy in every room that he was in. And there aren't many people who could be that combination of things, but that was Mort. He was the best. I love the guy, miss the guy. He'll always be a part of me. And there are so many things that happen now that I'd love to bring him into. You're not gonna believe what just happened here, Mort. And you know, you can't just text or call him the way that you used to for 15 years.
Very well said. He'll be greatly missed.
Yeah.
So your life, everybody knows, and on TV, a great presence as well. Adam, thank you so much for your time. We really appreciate it. We know you're a busy guy. That's going to do it here for this episode of You Know I'm Right for our very special guest, Adam Schefter. For my co-host, Joe Calabrese, I'm Nick Durst, and this has been You Know I'm Right.